The unbelievable drink. The Starbase Nexus was still waking up when Eric Wood arrived in the recreational zone. The quiet hum of the station a stark contrast to the bustling activity that would soon fill the halls. As a security officer on the station, Eric had long since adapted to the ever-changing rhythms of the sprawling spaceport. At 600 station time, the usual bustle of voices and clanking metal was replaced by the soft movements of early risers and the occasional robotic cleaning drone whirring across the floor. The wide, glass-paneled windows gave a sweeping view of the stars and distant planets, though it was often blocked by the thick hull of ships constantly docking and leaving the station. For now, the station felt peaceful. Eric's boots echoed as he walked through the polished floors of the cafe zone, heading for his usual morning haunt. Despite the space station's technological marvels and intergalactic population, there were few things he loved more than the simple ritual of enjoying a hot cup of Earth coffee. It wasn't easy to find on Nexus, real Earth coffee, anyway, and it cost him a decent chunk of his salary. But it was his one indulgence after a long, grueling shift. The station served a variety of beverages and foods from dozens of different planets, but nothing could replace that simple comfort. As Eric approached his spot, a familiar robotic figure greeted him. The cafe's barista, Chip, was an older model, its joints creaking slightly as it moved with the efficiency of a well-worn machine. Its large optical sensors glowed a soft blue, giving the impression of a welcoming gaze. "Good morning, Eric." The usual. Chip's voice was mechanical but friendly. Eric smiled and stretched slightly, rolling his shoulders after the long walk. "Yeah, same as always, Chip. Double shot today, though." Last night's shift was a beast. As Chip moved to prepare the coffee, Eric surveyed the cafe. It was still quiet, with only a few patrons scattered around the large room. Various species of aliens were sipping their drinks or eating their morning meals, exchanging soft greetings with one another. This cafe was a hub for many different species from across the galaxy, all trying to coexist in the crowded nexus of space. Despite the diversity in species, the cafe had one unifying factor: food and drink. Whether it was Alarian's nectar or Azorathian's carbonated algae brew, the place catered to all needs. But for Eric, it was always Earth coffee. As the machine whirred to life, Eric caught sight of someone new entering the cafe. The alien woman was hard to miss. Her iridescent skin shimmered in the soft light, shifting in hues of blue, purple, and silver. Alarian, Eric guessed, based on the almond-shaped eyes that glimmered like distant nebula and the sleek, silver braids that cascaded down her back. The Larians were known for their beauty and aesthetic sensibilities, their skin patterns changing depending on their mood or intentions, like a visual language that everyone could interpret. But this woman's expression was a mixture of curiosity and hesitation as she entered the cafe, perhaps uncertain about the complexities of station life. Her uniform still had the crisp, fresh creases of someone who had just unpacked. She was clearly new to the station, and the way she moved suggested a certain unfamiliarity with her surroundings. She seemed to be taking in the various species around her, studying the movements of the humans, the Plorethians, and the glimmers who passed by, each interacting with one another in a way that was fluid, yet strange. Eric's eyes briefly met hers, and he gave a polite nod. She paused for a moment, as if unsure how to respond. But then a subtle shift occurred. Her skin changed color, brightening slightly in what Eric assumed was the Larian equivalent of a smile. Her eyes twinkled with a curiosity that mirrored his own, and for a split second, Eric found himself intrigued by the enigmatic alien. The soft hiss of Chip's robotic arm drew his attention back to the coffee. A steaming mug of his beloved brew appeared before him, the rich aroma filling the air. Eric grabbed the cup, savoring the heat that seeped into his hands as he took the first sip. The warmth spread through him, the smooth bitterness of the coffee cutting through the remnants of his exhaustion. Nothing beat that first taste of caffeine in the morning. But just as he was about to take another sip, something caught his eye. The Larian woman had stopped in her tracks. Her wide, almond-shaped eyes were locked on him, but they were no longer filled with curiosity. Instead, her face contorted into an expression of complete shock, a strange mix of horror and disbelief. "By the celestial harmony," she exclaimed, her voice full of wonder and concern. "Sir, I believe your beverage has been contaminated with some form of industrial solvent." Eric blinked, a chuckle escaping him at the absurdity of her reaction. He had to admit, he had never seen someone so horrified by something as simple as earth coffee. He leaned against the counter and flashed her a grin. "It's just coffee, an earth drink. Want to try it?" Her eyes widened even further as she stepped closer, cautiously examining the steaming cup in his hands. Her body language was hesitant, but the curiosity was undeniable. "You willingly consume this substance every morning?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. Eric raised an eyebrow. "It's perfectly safe for humans." "Well, mostly safe," he added with a mischievous grin, enjoying the alien woman's reaction. The Larian woman's skin flickered between several shades of color, her concern growing deeper. "Wait, you drink this weird poison every morning?" she exclaimed, her skin flashing a vivid shade of orange, as her face twisted with both horror and fascination. "How are you still alive?" Eric burst out laughing, finding her genuine shock to be rather amusing. "Humans are full of surprises," he replied with a wink, leaning back against the counter. "Coffee's a staple of human life. We use it to stay awake, to feel alive." The Larian woman took a hesitant step forward, her curiosity overpowering her initial disgust. "Fascinating," she said in a low, reflective tone. "Your species deliberately consumes a neurotoxin for its stimulant properties. Medical journals have mentioned human resilience, but they fail to capture the eccentricity of your habits." Eric smirked. "If you think coffee's weird, wait until you hear about hot sauce," he replied, his smile widening. "And speaking of habits," he added, checking his chronometer, "I should probably get going. My shift starts in 20 minutes. The Larian woman's skin rippled with what seemed like disappointment. "Yes, of course," she said, her expression softening. "I should find my office as well. The Cultural Exchange Department is in Section G, I believe." Eric nodded, gesturing in the direction she had mentioned. "That's in the opposite direction from where I was heading, but I can point you the right way if you'd like." As they walked together through the bustling corridors of the station, Eric couldn't help but notice the reactions of the other species around them. Some aliens seemed puzzled, others intrigued, as they watched the two of them, a human and a Larian, walking side by side, casually engaged in conversation. To many, humans were seen as dangerous, unpredictable, and primitive, and the Larians, with their elegant, light-reflecting skin and highly developed cultural customs, seemed to be one of the more aesthetically oriented species in the galaxy. But here they were, sharing a conversation about coffee, one of the most primitive, basic habits humans had. It was a strange pairing, but one that felt oddly natural to Eric. "So, Lara," Eric began, glancing sideways at his new companion, "what other substances do humans regularly consume that might horrify the rest of the galaxy?" The Larian's skin shifted, her eyes wide as she processed the question. "Well, there's alcohol, caffeine in various forms, oh, and chocolate," Eric continued, enjoying the look of alarm that spread across her face. "It's actually toxic to some species on Earth, but those are just the recreational ones." Lara's skin pulsed in shades of bright yellow and blue. "Wait, those aren't your medical treatments, are they?" Eric grinned. "You mean antibiotics?" "Yeah, we poison ourselves to kill the things that make us sick. Works pretty well most of the time." Lara's skin flickered, her expression shifting from shock to intrigue. "I believe I need to update our cultural database regarding humans," she said, her voice both disturbed and fascinated. "Your species is far more interesting than our current records suggest." Eric chuckled at the thought. "That's one way to put it," he replied with a smile. "Maybe we can continue this discussion sometime. I'd be happy to horrify you with more human dietary habits." "I would like that," she replied, her skin glowing with a soft pink hue that Eric found quite appealing. Perhaps during the next rest cycle. Same cafe, 1800 hours. Eric's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if she knew the human implications of the word date, but the idea of continuing their conversation was enough to make him look forward to the next encounter. A cultural exchange. The hum of the Starbase Nexus was almost like a second heartbeat as Eric made his way through the bustling corridors, heading toward the security section. The station was waking up, just like the city of stars itself. As the various species began their day, the once quiet hallways filled with the sounds of movement, footsteps, mechanical whirs, and the murmur of conversations in a dozen different languages. But his thoughts kept drifting back to Laura. He couldn't help it. Their brief interaction had left a lasting impression on him. Eric had met a lot of aliens in his time as a security officer, but there was something about the Larian woman that intrigued him. Her reaction to his coffee had been pure shock, but there was a genuine curiosity behind it. It was the way she had examined his daily ritual, almost as if the idea of humans drinking something so primitive was both horrifying and fascinating. And yet, her willingness to learn, to understand what made humans tick, had been undeniable. He was snapped out of his thoughts when his communication device beeped softly, signaling an incoming message. He pulled it out from his jacket pocket and glanced at the screen, a reminder for his next shift. He didn't have time to waste. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the conversation he had started with Laura wasn't finished. It felt like there was more to explore, more to understand. It wasn't often that Eric felt compelled to delve into such cultural exchanges, but Laura was different. That evening, when his shift finally ended, Eric found himself back at the cafe. The evening crowd was much larger than the early morning rush. Various species sat at tables, eating, talking, and enjoying their beverages. The soft glow of ambient lights mixed with the hum of conversations, creating a warm atmosphere despite the diverse range of beings present. Eric took a seat at the same table he had been at earlier, his eyes scanning the room. He wasn't sure what to expect, but there was a spark of anticipation in the air. Moments later, Lara entered the cafe. The room seemed to quiet slightly as she made her way toward him. She was no longer in her administrative uniform. Instead, she wore a flowing garment that shimmered like liquid starlight, a material that reflected and refracted light in patterns Eric had never seen before. Her iridescent skin glowed with an inner light, shifting in hues that matched the hues of her outfit, subtle patterns that Eric was beginning to associate with her emotions. He noticed her eyes meet his, and she smiled. "Eric," she said softly, her voice carrying an odd resonance that sent a pleasant shiver down his spine. "I brought something for you." Eric's breath caught in his throat as she held up an ornate container, its design intricate, but delicate. "Since you introduced me to your morning poison," she continued with a hint of humor, "I thought it only fair to return the favor." He laughed, suddenly feeling an unexpected warmth between them. "Oh, absolutely," he said with a grin. "Now I'm worried." Lara's skin shimmered with amusement, a ripple of color passing across her face. "Oh, you should be," she replied, her voice light and teasing. "This is called Elixir, a traditional Larian refreshment. It's completely safe for humans. I checked the biochemical compatibility databases very thoroughly." Eric raised an eyebrow in mock suspicion. "Should I be worried about this one too?" Lara laughed, a sound that echoed in Eric's chest. "Absolutely. It's quite stimulating." Eric's curiosity peaked as she began to prepare the elixir. The liquid that poured from the container was mesmerizing, shimmering and moving in ways that defied normal fluid dynamics. It sparkled like diamond dust, reflecting the light in mesmerizing patterns. He couldn't help but watch in fascination as the liquid seemed to move of its own accord, swirling gently in the glass. "It's moving," Eric observed, leaning forward slightly. "Is that normal?" Lara smiled, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Of course it is. It hasn't been deactivated yet. You need to sing to it." Eric blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Sing to it." "Yes," Lara said, her voice matter-of-fact. The vibrations from vocal harmonics helped stabilize the molecular structure. Otherwise, it might try to escape. Eric stared at her, unsure if she was joking. "You're kidding, right?" Her expression remained serious. "No, I'm not kidding. Watch." Before Eric could respond, Lara gently cupped her hands around the glass and began to hum a soft, haunting melody. As she sang, the liquid in the glass began to settle, its movement synchronizing with the vibrations of her voice. It was as if the liquid was responding to her, adapting to the tones she was producing. Eric's mouth went dry as he watched in awe. He had never seen anything like it before. The fluid shimmered and shifted, becoming stable with each note Lara sang. The air around them seemed to vibrate with the energy of her voice, and for a moment, Eric almost felt as if he could hear the very stars themselves. "Is this normal for you?" Eric asked, still caught up in the strange, beautiful moment. Lara nodded, her skin shifting in hues of soft blue and violet, a sign of contentment. "It's a tradition, one that has been passed down for generations. Elixir is shared between those who wish to explore deeper connections. It enhances emotional resonance and physical awareness." Eric's heart skipped a beat as he processed what she was saying. This was no ordinary drink. The way she was speaking, the way the liquid responded to her voice, it was more than just a beverage. It was an experience. "And you want me to drink this while you sing?" Eric asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lara's eyes met his, and her skin rippled with soft, inviting colors. "Yes," she said softly. "Now drink it while it's still harmonized." Eric took the glass, the liquid glowing faintly in his hands as he brought it to his lips. He could feel the warmth of it, the energy flowing from the glass into his body, like drinking liquid starlight. He hesitated for a moment, unsure what to expect. But then, with a deep breath, he took a sip. The sensation was indescribable. It was like nothing he had ever felt before. It was as if the drink was alive, a symphony of sensations that filled his entire body. His skin tingled, his senses sharpened, and for a moment, it felt as if his very being was connected to the cosmos itself. He could almost hear the stars, feel the energy of the universe flow through him. "Holy!" Eric gasped, feeling the intensity of the experience wash over him. Lara's skin pulsed with satisfaction, and her voice dropped into a lower tone. "Now you understand why we found your coffee so shocking," she said, a playful hint in her voice. "Though I must admit, watching your reaction to Elixir is quite stimulating." Eric couldn't help but grin, the lingering warmth of the drink still buzzing through his body. "That's intense," he murmured, taking another sip, his eyes meeting hers as he processed the rush of sensations. Lara's skin flickered with new colors, and she leaned slightly forward. "Yes, but it's not just about the physical sensation," she explained, her voice quieter now. "It creates deeper emotional connections, amplifying the resonance between us. In our culture, Elixir is often shared by those wishing to connect on a deeper level." Eric blinked, suddenly aware of the weight of what she was saying. Her voice, the way her skin reacted to his every movement. There was a subtle tension in the air now. Their conversation had taken a turn from casual to something far more intimate, and Eric wasn't sure what to make of it. "You mean, this is some kind of alien aphrodisiac?" Eric asked, raising an eyebrow. Lara's skin flashed with embarrassment, her face turning a shade of deep rose. But she didn't look away. "Would that be inappropriate?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Eric felt his heart rate increase, the space between them suddenly charged with an energy he hadn't expected. "Not inappropriate," he said softly, his voice husky. "Unexpected, maybe. But definitely not unwelcome." The air between them crackled with electricity, and Eric found himself drawn closer. Lara's skin patterns rippled in time with his heartbeat, an intricate dance of colors that seemed to mirror his own emotions. "I've been studying human courtship rituals," she said, her voice now rich with a deeper timbre. They're surprisingly similar to Larian traditions in many ways, though humans seem to rely more on physical signals rather than biochromatic resonance. Eric leaned in, captivated by the shifting patterns of her skin. I think we appreciate directness, he said softly, his voice steady despite the charge in the air. And right now, I'm definitely appreciating everything about you. The space between them seemed to disappear as Lara's skin glowed in soft hues of pink and violet. They were no longer just two individuals talking. There was something more now, a deeper connection forming in the subtle exchange of color and sensation. Perhaps we could explore this connection further, she murmured, her hand reaching out to gently trace a finger along his arm, sending a thrill through his body. Eric could only nod, knowing that this was only the beginning of what was becoming a complex and unexpected bond. The deepening connection. The ambient light of the cafe felt almost surreal now, glowing softly around them, as if the universe itself were leaning in to listen to their conversation. The glass of elixir in Eric's hand seemed to pulse with a life of its own, vibrating with a soft, musical hum that matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. His senses were heightened, every detail around him sharp, clear, and vibrating with energy. He could hear every subtle shift in Lara's breath, the gentle rustle of her clothing as she adjusted herself on the opposite side of the table. For a moment, everything around them seemed to fade, as if the universe had momentarily paused, giving them this one moment, this one shared experience. He was acutely aware of Lara, her skin alive with shifting colors, every flicker of emotion broadcasted clearly in a way that no human could ever experience. Her body language was open, yet her eyes held a quiet depth of uncertainty, a vulnerability he hadn't noticed before. Eric found himself staring at her, captivated by the intricate patterns on her skin that seemed to mirror the complexity of the emotions she was radiating. He noticed how her skin shifted with each word, each pause, each glance. There was so much he didn't understand about her species, so much he wanted to learn. But one thing was becoming increasingly clear. There was an undeniable connection between them, a bond that neither of them had expected. Lara seemed to sense his thoughts as she leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but deliberate. "You're different," she said, her eyes locking with his. "You metabolize the elixir differently than any species I've encountered." Eric raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her statement. Different how? Her skin shimmered with a soft glow, as if contemplating the right words. "Most beings who drink it become passive, dreamy, almost lethargic," she explained. "But you became more focused, more intense. Your heart rate increased, but so did your energy." Her fingers, still resting on the edge of the table, moved subtly. "It's fascinating, Eric. Most species lose themselves in the sensation, but you became more present, more aware." Eric let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Her observations were correct. The elixir had given him a rush of sensations, but it wasn't just physical. It was as if the liquid had tapped into something deeper, something primal within him. He could feel his connection to the universe, like he could almost taste the energy that flowed through everything around him. And yet, despite the overwhelming sensations, there was a clarity in his mind, a sharpness that hadn't been there before. "You're saying the elixir reacts to me differently?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost contemplative. Lara nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "Yes, it's as if your body resonates with it differently. It's almost like you're absorbing the energy in a way I've never seen before." Her voice lowered, a mix of awe and curiosity in her tone. "Your species, you're so resilient, Eric. There's something about humans that no one can quite explain, even when we see it firsthand." Eric's heart skipped a beat at her words. He wasn't used to being the center of such fascination, especially from someone like her. She wasn't just intrigued by him. She was captivated, studying him as if he were the answer to a mystery she couldn't solve. Her gaze was intense, yet tender, and it made him feel more seen than he'd ever felt before. "You're not exactly what I expected either," Eric confessed, his voice carrying a hint of vulnerability that he rarely showed. "I've never met anyone quite like you." Lara's eyes softened at his admission. Her skin shimmered with a calming pattern of light, almost like a gentle sigh. "I didn't expect this either," she said, her voice quiet, thoughtful. "Humans are fascinating, Eric. Your species has a complexity I didn't understand before. It's not just your physiology or resilience. It's your connection to each other, to the world around you. You're so different from us. But in a way, that's what makes you so intriguing." Eric felt a strange warmth spread through his chest at her words. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear them. There had always been a sense of isolation within him, a feeling that he was from a world too violent, too harsh for others to understand. But here, with Lara, it felt different. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, but connecting. "I think I'm starting to understand what you mean," he said slowly, his gaze dropping to the glass of elixir in his hands. "The more I drink, the more I can feel. I don't know, everything around me. The energy in the air. It's like a current I can tap into." Lara smiled softly, her skin reflecting a warm golden hue. "Yes," she replied. "That's exactly it. You're connecting with the energy around you. The elixir is an elixir meant to help beings tap into that resonance. But with you, it's different. You're not just absorbing it. You're amplifying it, using it to sharpen your awareness." Eric leaned back in his chair, his fingers still holding the glass. "That's incredible," he murmured. He had never felt anything like this before, never had a drink that made him feel so alive, so attuned to everything around him. Lara's expression became more serious, though there was still a trace of amusement in her eyes. "Humans have a unique resilience," she said, her voice almost reverent. "You survive through extremes, through things that would break most other species. But there's also something about you that makes you thrive in the most unlikely of circumstances. You don't just endure, you adapt, you grow." Eric was silent for a moment, contemplating her words. His mind raced back to the many battles he had fought in, to the times he had faced death and come out stronger. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about finding ways to live, to evolve, even in the most hostile environments. "It's not just physical survival," Eric said softly. "It's mental, emotional, spiritual too. We find ways to keep going, even when the odds are stacked against us." Lara nodded, her skin rippling with subtle patterns of understanding. "That's what makes you so fascinating. It's not just your physical strength, it's your will, your drive to keep moving forward, to find new ways to connect, to understand. It's something we Larians don't fully grasp, but we admire it." For a brief moment, the two of them just sat in silence, the shared understanding between them growing stronger with every passing second. Eric could feel it, a thread of connection, weaving between their words, their glances, the energy in the air. It was almost tangible now, a force that brought them closer, that drew them into each other's orbit. Lara broke the silence first, her voice quiet, almost shy. "Eric, there's something about you, something I can't quite place. You're unlike anyone I've ever met." Eric smiled, his heart quickening at her words. "Same goes for you, Lara." She smiled back, the soft pink glow of her skin deepening with what Eric recognized as affection. "Maybe that's why we keep finding ways to connect," she said, her voice full of warmth. "We understand each other in a way that's hard to explain." Eric nodded, his hand resting on the edge of his glass, the warmth of the elixir still lingering in his body. He could feel it, a spark, a new beginning. Their bond had been formed in the most unexpected of ways, but he wasn't sure he cared how it had happened. All he knew was that he wanted to see where it would lead. "I think we've only just scratched the surface," Eric said, his voice steady but filled with possibility. "I'd like to see where this goes." Lara's eyes softened, and her skin flashed with a new, deeper pattern of blue. "I think I'd like that too," she replied. The cafe around them seemed to fade once again, leaving just the two of them, and the unspoken understanding between them. The connection that had begun with something as simple as a drink had grown into something far more complex, more profound. And as they sat together, the future stretched out before them. A future full of possibilities, of discoveries, and of shared experiences yet to come.